Suyin is traversing the streets while eating a Choco Taco when she sees Sang Yu walking with a female who is wrapped around his arm. Suyin stops in her tracks at this sight and starts having a panic attack, so severe that she drops her Choco Taco. Suyin is now in the car with Sang Yu and she thinks that he has been suspicious lately. She feels like Sang Yu is watching her closely and he is hiding his phone for some reason. Suyin asks Sang Yu about his dinner plans, and he reveals that he already has plans with a certain person he is indebted to. The person he is indebted to was this mysterious woman from the start. Suyin is irritated and puts her contaminated Choco Taco into the garbage. Suddenly, Suyin and the woman make eye contact and Suyin attempts to hide to not get caught. But the woman didn't seem to notice since she didn't have a reaction and just kept walking. More importantly, Suyin notices that they are very close and she thinks they are maybe old friends. Suyin's heart drops at the thought of this and hopes they are just friends. Suyin has hope that Sang Yu isn't the type of person to cheat on her and she rushes down the road to catch up. Sang Yu and the woman are together and he thanks her for her help and refers to her as his sister, so she is probably one of his 3 sisters. But the woman says that her time isn't free and recalls that Sang Yu promised to take care of her today. Sang Yu bows to her and asks where their next location is. The woman is flattered. They are now eating and Suyin is close by and spying on them. But this wasn't intentional. She just happened to run into them. The woman asks Sang Yu how the food is and repeatedly asks if it's yummy. But Sang Yu is struggling from how spicy the food is and is drinking water to cope. The woman says that Sang Yu is still a child, and he thinks she is drunk. But Sang Yu has never seen the woman drunk and she references the time Sang Yu passed out without pants on the street. She continues by aggressively wiping Sang Yu's face. This made Suyin uncomfortable, so she fled the scene. This wasn't the woman's intention because she wanted Suyin to confront her, but she didn't. Suyin is walking and she is frustrated because Sang Yu told her that he is with a friend. But that woman was clearly not just a friend because they were too close. Suyin thinks maybe Sang Yu has been lying to her about how he loves her this whole time. But Suyin aggressively slaps her cheeks and decides she won't be mad until she knows exactly what's going on. But first, she must eat. As Suyin is eating macarons, Sang Yu and the woman appear. They appear everywhere Suyin goes, and she suspects the woman is predicting where she is going. Soon, the woman enters the bathroom and Suyin is standing there waiting for her. She tells the woman to tell her whatever she wants to tell her instead of following her around all day. The woman stands there smiling and is confused. Suyin continues by saying that it seems like the woman has been following her. The woman asks if Suyin knows her from a wedding or birthday and notes that she has a hard time memorizing faces. But Suyin confirms that it's their first time meeting. Then the woman comes to the realization that this is because of Sang Yu. Suyin is confused how she knows him, but the woman says that every day, they used to eat together and slept under the same roof. Suyin is shocked and the woman asks how Suyin knows him. Suyin looks at the ground and says he's just a work colleague. The woman understands and asks how Sang Yu is adapting to the job. But Suyin ignores the question and declares that she is Sang Yu's girlfriend. The woman is astonished and they meet up with Sang Yu, who is mad that the woman would mess with Suyin like that. But she was just enjoying herself. But she still apologizes to Suyin. The woman introduces herself as Sang Yu's oldest sister, Yenji Choi. Suyin also introduces herself. Yenji ponders the situation and then says that Suyin is her sister-in-law. Suyin is shocked and Yenji asks if she can call Suyin sister-in-law because she is her brother's girlfriend. Suyin agrees. Yenji has a lot to ask Suyin, but that is not today's problem and she leaves. Suyin respectively bows to her and Sang Yu flips her off. Suyin and Sang Yu are walking together, and Sang Yu apologizes because his sisters always mess with him. Suyin understands, but Sang Yu is confused why Suyin is here in the first place because she worked from home today. Suyin lies and says that she needed to buy something and her eyes met with Yenji by chance. Sang Yu changes the topic by saying that he needed his sister's help and then apologizes. Suyin thinks it's about Yenji, but he is apologizing for something else. Sang Yu has been hesitating telling Suyin about this and doesn't know if it's the right choice. Suyin is devastated. She immediately thinks it's the worst case scenario and thanks Sang Yu for everything. They have been dating for a few weeks and she has been happy. But it didn't work out. Suyin starts crying but Sang Yu stops her. Suyin asks if Sang Yu has been avoiding her and he says no. Then Sang Yu musters up some courage and presents Suyin with a jewelry box. This is to show that Sang Yu and Suyin are lovers. Suyin is shocked and Sang Yu asks if she will accept it. It is assumed that she accepted. Back to Minchiel and Jia. They have just returned and Minchiel notes that Gia worked hard in the gym today, so he wanted to give her a reward. The reward is a surprise attack, and he tases Gia. This is supposed to be a pun in Korean. Reward and fatal wound contain the same symbol. Suddenly, Gia wakes up from this dream and wonders why she dreams about weird stuff after leg day. Gia is walking and is in immense pain because it's been a while since she last worked out and Minchiel worked her too hard yesterday. This is going to affect her work. Suddenly, Minchiel appears in front of Gia with wet hair and no glasses. Gia admires Minchiel's hot appearance, and he is confused why Gia is like that. Gia is questioning if Minchiel has always been this handsome. While Minchiel is making a chicken breast smoothie, he asks if Gia wants protein powder, but she says she's fine with the normal chicken breast smoothie. Gia now realizes that Minchiel has always been handsome when he isn't wearing his glasses. Gia recalls something about when Minchiel was young, and she comes to a profound realization. Minchiel thinks Gia's change in expression means she wants protein powder, but she doesn't and chugs her chicken breast smoothie. Gia recalls that Minchiel was pretty good looking when he was younger. When they were in elementary school, Gia applied makeup to Minchiel. After they were done, Minchiel washed it off and Gia felt bad even though it was practice for the talent show. Minchiel leaves the bathroom and Gia apologizes and tells him to not be mad, but Minchiel isn't mad. Gia continues to apologize and says that it was her first time seeing him without glasses and he was cuter than expected, so she couldn't help herself. Minchiel takes offense to this and says to not call him cute. Since he's a guy, Gia should call him handsome. Minchiel wonders why even his family think he looks cute without glasses. Gia thinks this is funny and then says that Minchiel looks manly with his glasses on. She makes fun of Minchiel by saying that people call him cute because of his big eyes and long eyelashes, but he covers them up with glasses which look manlier. Minchiel asks if this is really true and Gia says no. Back to the present, Gia realizes that interaction was more important than she realized. So, she asks Minchiel if he is wearing his glasses to look cool. Minchiel is confused, but Gia says she is asking because he has been wearing the same glasses since he was little. Minchiel says he wears them because they are comfortable and very practical since he stares at a computer all day. Also, the big lenses put less stress on the eyes, and he has anti-blue light lenses for additional help. Gia is disappointed and thinks that her comment didn't drastically change Minchiel's life. Gia and Minchiel are now outside and part ways to go to work. As Minchiel is walking, he recalls the same scene as a child Gia was thinking about and smiles about it, indicating that he wears his glasses to look manly. Regardless, Gia would still like Minchiel to not wear glasses. Nari sees Gia thinking about this and asks what's wrong. Then, Gia notices something and is shocked. Nari is reading one of her books. When Gia published her first book, she appeared at a bookstore and bought it. Everyone at the bookstore was also there to buy her book. After, Gia ran home celebrating her accomplishment and the bag rips, making her books go flying. Back to the present, Gia is wondering why Nari is reading her book. She wonders if the book is even still on sale and thinks it's just a coincidence that she's reading it. But, even after all these years, seeing someone reading her book is still embarrassing. Gia wants to know what she thinks, so she nervously asks Nari how the book is. Nari is scared by Gia's face, and she says the book sucks. Gia is shocked. She says it's cringe and reads like a teenager wrote it but is also a fun read. Gia blushes from hearing this, and she asks Nari why she is reading it. Nari says she's reading it for her book report. Gia is confused and Nari explains that it's the cafe's best benefit. The boss handpicks a book every Monday and puts it on a bulletin board. If you write a report about it and hand it in, you get 100,000 won immediately. Gia is shocked. Nari continues by saying that if you turn in a report every week for a year, the boss will pay for a vacation. Gia is confused why Yenju would do this, but Nari explains that it helps the boss with her writing and she wants people to read her favorite works. The report needs to be 500 words excluding spaces. There are 4 weeks in a month, so she can make 400,000 won extra per month. Gia is skeptical and asks Nari if this is an April Fool's joke. But Nari asks Gia why she would lie about it and says the boss will even buy the books for you. After work, Gia and Minchiel are walking home and Minchiel asks if something happened at work today because Gia's expression looks bad. Gia asks Minchiel if he could get 100,000 won for writing a book report. Would he do it? Minchiel thinks it is a scam, but Gia says it's not. Minchiel does the math and says that that is 201 per word. This is enticing, but Gia should be cautious because maybe it is a pyramid scheme. This makes Gia feel stupid, so she kicks Minchiel. At home, Gia picks up her book and she feels bad about it. but it is too good to refuse. Jia feels guilty about this because she told Yenju that she won't write anymore. But it's fine because it's just a report. Jia's former selves assemble, and her former self angrily points out that writing a report is still writing. But Jia tells her former self to shut up and thinks that if Yenju gets mad at her, she can just apologize. Jia starts writing and quickly finishes and sends it over. Immediately after, Jia was sent 100,000 won, and she leaves the room to show Mincheol it's not a scam, but he still thinks it's a pyramid scheme. Yenduek and Yenju are drinking wine, and he's surprised Yenju got Jia to write again. Yenduek thinks a book report isn't exactly writing, but Yenju points out he never specified what type of writing he wanted Jia to do. Regardless, Yenduek is impressed that Jia's book report is exactly in her style. It's casual and sucks you in. He's also surprised Yenju pulled this off for only 100,000 won, but she points out it wasn't the money that did this. She created an atmosphere that was comfortable and where Jia could make her own rules. Here, she could put her passion onto paper and share it with her colleagues. This eventually will bring writing back into Jia's daily life. Yenduek thinks Yenju spent a long time planning this out, but instead of answering it, she asks if Jia writing makes him happy. Yenduek says that Jia's writing is strangely funny, but points out that the one who likes Jia's writing more than him is Yenju. Yenduek thinks Yenju has been influencing Jia's life from the side, but Yenju says it's none of his concern, and it's time to deal with their bet. The bet was if Yenju could get Jia to write, Yenduek had to drink anything she gave him. Yenduek denies this, but when Yenju threatens to cancel her book deal, he instantly agrees. Before he starts, he asks Yenju if it's really okay if he does this because if he makes a mistake, it will be her fault. Yenju ignores the question and tells Yenduek to drink. Yenduek chugs the glass of wine and Yenju applauds him for it. Yenju then gives him some snacks and Yenduek is relieved until he sees an array of strange snacks. Then, Yenju fills his glass back up with wine and tells Yenduek to drink. If he falls asleep before Yenju, he has to come back and do this again. 3 hours later, Yenduek passes out. Yenju is impressed he lasted this long and leans toward him. She touches his hair and then moves his face and mouth. Yenju leans toward Yenduek's lips and almost kisses him, but they are interrupted by the phone ringing. It's a call from Yenduek's son, and Yenju answers the phone. His son instantly recognizes her voice, implying something happened between Yenju and Yenduek in the past. Back to Mincheol and Jia. Jia is cursing out Mincheol while he's flexing. We must go 1 hour in the past to understand how this happened. Jia got the money from the book report and Mincheol is impressed with Jia's work benefits. Mincheol is now playing a famous fighting game and is on a 3-game winning streak, and Jia is impressed by Mincheol's character. They have been dating for 2 weeks and being around each other makes them happy, and this is how it should be. But nothing else has really changed. Mincheol is still always gaming, and while Jia doesn't expect him to be romantic, she thinks it would be nice if they acted more like a couple. Then, Jia gets an idea and she challenges Mincheol to a match in the game. Mincheol and Jia are now playing on the sofa, and Mincheol has that gamer posture. This is exactly what their relationship needed, and they decide that the loser has to do whatever the winner wants. All Jia needs to do is beat Mincheol a single time. This is a brilliant idea, and no matter what happens, it should create a good atmosphere for their relationship. The plan is flawless. Mincheol says that if he wins, they will go jogging. Jia thinks it's a joke because they already exercise a fair amount, and she wants it to be something romantic. But Mincheol never jokes about exercise, and Jia's plan to spice up their relationship could be ruined if she loses. They are now intensely gaming, and Jia thinks Mincheol will go easy on her. But he doesn't and is more focused than before. Jia is very close to winning the round, but suddenly, Mincheol one-shots her. Jia decides to cuss out Mincheol, and Mincheol emotes on Jia. Jia is devastated, but Mincheol tells her to not feel so bad since he has a massive advantage. But Jia does not admit defeat despite losing 10 games in a row. Mincheol says they have work tomorrow and decides to consider her almost winning a victory. But Jia says no because Mincheol is pitying her, which is worse than before, and says they should play just one more. Mincheol agrees, and Jia says she'll know if he loses on purpose. It is now 3:46 a.m. and Jia has lost every match. She insists on going one more round despite Mincheol being visibly exhausted, but he agrees. Jia has discovered the secret to winning. In order to make the game fair, Jia will be sitting on Mincheol's lap. Mincheol is confused because he can't see the screen, But that's the point. They begin playing and Jia's plan is finally working because she is winning. Suddenly, Mincheol picks Jia up by her legs and she is now upside down. The odds are now in Mincheol's favor. To counter this, Jia starts pinching him. After a long-fought battle, Jia wins and has Mincheol in an armbar. Jia celebrates and she wants to hear Mincheol's thoughts about losing to his rookie wife in a fighting game. Mincheol is devastated. He begs for one more round, but Jia says no because she doesn't want to fight weaklings. Mincheol admits defeat. He says that if Jia would go to such lengths to win, there is something she really wants him to do. But Jia forgot what she was going to do. Suddenly, a small devil Jia appears and tells her that this is her chance to leave a deep impression on Mincheol. But the devil Jia is stopped by an angel Jia telling her they should engage in a particular spicy activity. Jia crushes the angel Jia in embarrassment. Suddenly, Mincheol calls out to Jia and suggests that they should go to sleep soon. But Jia knows that she won't get an opportunity like this again. So she tells Mincheol to come to the park entrance on Saturday at noon. He will be slapped once for every second he's late. While Jia is waiting at the park, the devil and angel Jia are calling her a coward because she could have gone all the way back there. But Jia is more concerned about how she barely got herself to tell Mincheol to come here. It is 5 minutes until noon and Mincheol still isn't here despite him leaving the house an hour ago. Jia thinks Mincheol went to the gym, but surely he wouldn't do that on a day like this. Then, Jia hears her name being called in the distance. She looks and is shocked at what she sees. It is Mincheol with no glasses and fashionable clothes. He looks incredibly hot. Jia compliments his outfit and comments how she's surprised Mincheol knows how to dress like that. Mincheol reciprocates by saying Jia looks pretty. Jia brushes it off, but her heart is racing. They leave for the renowned sushi restaurant where Mincheol has a reservation and Jia questions if he's really Mincheol. But this doubt fades away as they have a light workout to help digest the sushi, which is really just bowling. Jia is having fun and didn't expect this because their hobbies don't overlap. Now that she thinks about it, Jia realizes that Mincheol and her have always had fun together since they were little, so maybe they aren't so different after all. After bowling, Mincheol's behavior changes again as he's being oddly considerate by going shopping, watching a movie, and he even risks losing his gains by drinking beer at a bar. But this isn't abnormal behavior because Mincheol has always tried his best when he can't do something, and this is the result of that. Seeing his efforts makes Jia happy and gives Mincheol 100 Jia points for the date, but it could have been higher. Mincheol claims he didn't do anything special. But when Jia suggests they drink beer like this every night, Mincheol knows he's been checkmated. Before they continue, Jia asks how far Mincheol intends to take their date tonight, which results in them sitting there in awkward silence for 5 minutes without using their phones. This makes Jia panic and Devil Jia thinks she should take it all the way and secure Mincheol. Angel Jia decides to agree with Devil Jia because today is the perfect opportunity and might not come again. This prompts Jia to break the silence by asking how far Mincheol is going to take it again. Mincheol says he's going to take it all the way. What a Chad. Mincheol grabs Jia's hand and repeatedly asks how far Jia planned to take it tonight. Their nice romantic moment is ruined by Siyu mistaking Mincheol for someone trying to pick up Jia. Nari had warned him not to do it, but he did anyway. She continues by asking if Jia and Mincheol are on a date and Jia claims they're just on a walk, which is a blatant lie. Jia asks if Nari and Siyu are on a date and they avoid the question. Soon, they all leave and Mincheol apologizes for being too pushy at the bar. But this is exactly what Jia wants and she loved it and she thought this was the perfect date. But there was a problem. Jia didn't like how Mincheol was trying to be someone he isn't for Jia because she likes him the way he is now. Taking this into account, Jia reduces her score for the date to 98 Jia points because Mincheol apologized earlier and prefers confidence. Mincheol takes this personally and surprises Jia by hugging her while she's walking away to make up for the lost points. But Jia avoids the question by claiming she's feeling hot, which is from her heart racing. Mincheol apologizes thinking she was referring to the temperature, but Jia doesn't like that because she just told him to stop apologizing. Suddenly, Jia pulls Mincheol in and kisses him. Jia did this as an example of what Mincheol should be doing because showing affection for each other is normal for couples. Her point is that it's okay for Mincheol to make mistakes and he doesn't have to apologize for something that isn't wrong. Hearing this prompts Mincheol to suddenly kiss Jia. Before they go home, Mincheol wants to go to the convenience store. While Jia is waiting outside, she thinks Mincheol is getting something starting with the letters CON. He could be getting Korean hangover medicine, but she thinks it's unlikely. Jia thinks the only reasonable conclusion is that Mincheol is preparing for a certain spicy activity. While Jia is waiting outside, someone recognizes her. Back when Jia was a sophomore in college, she met Gang Yuzhou. He is tall. Everyone loves him and even covered Jia with his jacket, so he appeared to be friendly. They have been reunited at the convenience store 10 years after college. They exchange friendly greetings, but then Mincheol appears and apprehends Gang Yu because he thinks he's trying to pick up Jia. Jia diffuses the situation before Mincheol breaks his arm, and she introduces Mincheol as her husband. Before they leave, Gang Yu says they should meet up because her other friends from college are worried about her. Jia and Mincheol are now going home in a taxi, and Jia says that Gang Yu is just someone she knew in college. But he really isn't because something traumatic happened between them in college. Meanwhile, Gang Yu arrives home and tells someone named Jisoo who Jia knew in college that he ran into Jia today. She is shocked. 2 days later, Jia and Mincheol haven't made any progress in their relationship, and Jia blames it on Gang Yu. She tries to fix it by reassuring that nothing is going on between her and Gang Yu even though they had a crush on each other in college. Mincheol claims he's not worried because he knows it's hard for Jia to talk about, but she still thinks he's worried. Jia and Gang Yu's relationship wasn't special, but if she could erase anything from her life, she would erase her time at university where she met him. At university, they got closer because they were in the same major. They would share notes and go out to eat together, and as a result, Jia became interested in him. Soon, rumors started going around that they were dating. Jia and Gang Yu denied these claims because they weren't true. Around that time, Gang Yu started to jokingly ask Jia out, and she kept declining because she didn't want rumors to spread further. Despite this, Jia still hung out with him because he was fun to be around. Later at a party, a buff guy who looks like he's going to cause trouble asks if Gang Yu really isn't dating Jia. This guy is the class head Kang Juho. This is inconvenient because Jia became the class representative of the business major because she used her godly luck to get into this prestigious university, and her academic ability is terrible, meaning she can't do any other major. This means Jia has to get along with Kang because they collaborate. Unfortunately for Jia, Kang has a terrible reputation. It's easy to see why because here, he asked Jia to be his wing woman on a blind date to make him look better, except there wasn't a blind date and he just wanted to ask her why she doesn't have a boyfriend. Jia avoids the question by saying she has high standards and is annoyed at Kang for setting this up. After, Jia consults with her longtime friend Yu Jisu about why people like Kang keep bothering her. Yu solves Jia's problem by suggesting she date him. Jia is outraged and doesn't want to date Kang. But what Yu meant is that Jia should date Gang Yu. They are already close, so it wouldn't look unnatural, so she should try it out. This is exactly what Jia does as she asks Gang Yu out and he accepts. But their relationship is more so to maintain her peaceful life than anything, so it's not real, just like her and Mincheol's relationship was. With this, Jia's life is more peaceful than before, and she's growing to like Gang Yu more. So, Jia consults with Yenju about this, and she's annoyed that Jia is bragging about her relationship and didn't help her at all. Jia had the ideal life with decent grades, a boyfriend and good social circle, but this all came to an end when Jia entered this classroom. Everyone was looking at her as if she did something wrong, and Kang entered behind her. In the Silla period, there was a fable called The Ballad of Xiadong. The main character Xiadong came from humble origins and was infatuated by Princess Xianhua, who was the most sought-after woman in the Silla kingdom, and it was time for her to get married. In an attempt to seduce her, Xiadong got children to sing inappropriate songs about him and Xianhua together. This caused a scandal which ruined Xianhua's reputation, and they eventually got married. This is exactly what happened to Jia here. False rumors had spread that she and Kang had hooked up, and showing up to class together wearing the same clothes as yesterday didn't help the situation. While walking down the hall, Jia confronts Kang about it, but he claims he didn't know about the rumors and isn't worried. He tells Jia that it will go away because people will lose interest, but it only evolved into rumors about Jia dating both Kang and Gang Yu. Kang promised to fix the rumors, but he did nothing to stop it. Soon after, Jia was about to walk into a room when she witnessed Kang spreading those scandalous rumors about her. Jia was so shocked that she wasn't angry. To try and not make it worse, Jia tried to get along with everyone, studied hard and dedicated herself to student council work, but it didn't work. Her friends stopped hanging out with her and people she's never met started being friendly with her, probably to try and hook up with her because they think she's easy. Gang Yu was the only person who believed in her. But in the end it didn't matter because Jia broke up with him because she didn't want to cause him trouble. Gia didn't know how to fix it because she has to prove something never happened, which is impossible, because it's her word against an unstoppable and constantly evolving rumor. One day, Gia was walking in the rain with a cigarette when Kang pulled up and offered to take her out for drinks because he heard she broke up with Gang Yu. This was the breaking point for Gia. She picked up a brick, got on top of Kang's car and hurled it at Kang's windshield. Gia decided that if she wanted to put an end to the empty rumors, she'd have to make a real one. One where she is a madwoman. Gia wasn't proud of it and decided to drop out of college, which brings us to the present at the cafe, where she still isn't good at dealing with people. A prime example of this is this customer who ordered a cafe latte and got mad when she got a cafe latte instead of a vanilla latte. Instead of trying to make the customer admit their mistake by providing evidence from the CCTV, Gia decided that the best course of action was to keep her head down and make the vanilla latte. This is why Gia is conflicted about her situation with Minchil. She doesn't know if saying nothing is better than telling Minchil the truth about what happened with Gang Yu, because it might make it worse. The workday is over and it's raining. Neither Gia nor Nari brought their umbrellas because the weather forecast said it wasn't going to rain, so they borrowed umbrellas customers forgot in the cafe. But Gia doesn't need it because Minchil is here with one. This prompts Nari to joke about Gia paying double her taxes, and Minchil is concerned that Gia didn't pay her taxes this year. Gia and Minchil walk home, and the lady next to them is posting about how stupid Minchil and Gia are for sharing an umbrella when they have two. Suddenly, a car zooms by and splashes water on them. Minchil blocks it with his umbrella and keeps Gia safe. But the lady next to them got soaked, which is the punishment she deserves for talking badly about Minchil. Back at home, Minchil creates a calming mood and uses various devices to make Gia relax and become sleepy. Gia doesn't understand what Minchil is trying to do, but he doesn't either because he's following a YouTube tutorial. Minchil is supposed to turn on classical music to create a calming mood, but instead turns on Indian music, which makes her less sleepy. Gia decides to pretend to sleep by fake snoring, and Minchil can't believe it worked. Gia opens her eyes later to see Minchil trying to hypnotize Gia with the coin, trying to make her obey his every order. Minchil was supposed to do this before Gia went to sleep and desperately tries to find other methods. But he can't find any, so he commits to the method. But Mouse tries to play with the coin because it looks like a cat toy. After moving Mouse, Minchil finds a new method and shines an extremely bright light into Gia's eyes as if she's being interrogated in a crime documentary. Gia can't handle the light, but before she opens them, Minchil realizes the light is supposed to be dim and not pointed directly into her eyes. After giving Mouse a snack, Minchil says that Gia will fall into a deep slumber, and on the count of 3, she will confront the past she has that she struggles to discuss with others. At this moment, Gia realizes that Minchil actually did care about her past and set this whole thing up so they could talk about it without hurting their relationship. Minchil counts to 3 and asks what Gia sees in front of her. Gia sees nothing because her eyes are closed, but thinks she should pretend to say something for Minchil's sake. Before she gets the chance, Minchil says she should see nothing because she has no uncomfortable secrets and did nothing wrong, and that he believes in her. This makes Gia remember a time in middle school where she was being punished when she hadn't done anything wrong, but was blamed for breaking a window, and she couldn't get out of it because she was seen as a troublemaker. This is when Minchil stands up for her and professes that Gia didn't do it and that he will find the real culprit. This brought Gia to tears and she wakes up crying. Gia decides to get up and lay down next to Minchil, who was sleeping. The focus briefly shifts to the bench in Minchil's room ready to be used for some reason, and then back to Minchil being confused why Gia is here. Gia doesn't know why either, so she cutely says that she had a scary dream. Minchil is terrified because he thinks he caused it and goes back to sleep. Gia doesn't like that, so she makes Minchil say quote unquote, "Oh no, our little baby had a bad dream." So Minchil says exactly that, and Gia instantly regrets it because it's cringe. Minchil offers his back to Gia to calm her down, and she accepts. Gia starts to make it seem like she's opening up about something, but then suddenly starts tickling Minchil. Gia continues by asking if Minchil wants to ask her anything else he's curious about because he was acting strange earlier. Minchil thinks Gia is referring to the hypnosis and says that even if she's hiding something right now, she will eventually get close enough to him to tell her, because that is the type of person Gia is. Gia climbs onto Minchil's back while asking him where he learned to say stuff like that. Gia tries to kiss Minchil, but her hands slip down and she feels a long formation akin to the Leaning Tower of Pisa. They separate and are both embarrassed. An awkward silence fills the room, but it is broken when their hands eventually meet and they start kissing. They stop and Gia quickly moves Minchul's hair aside, and after admiring her work, she immediately moves it back by patting his head. Gia notices that Minchul's heart is beating fast and he admits that he's nervous. So nervous that his skin is hot. So hot that if you were to crack an egg on his face, it would instantly cook. Gia faces her back to Minchul and questions why she's done all of this. Everything in their relationship, from their marriage to coming to his room today, was her idea. Gia just wishes that Minchul would take initiative for once, but can't get herself to say it and starts to leave. When she reaches the door, Minchul slams his hand next to her face and asks who allowed her to leave. In true kidnapper fashion, Minchul picks Gia up, puts her on the bed, and starts nibbling on her shoulder. Gia wants Minchul to stop, but since she started it, he refuses and comments how he's been holding back this whole time. Gia has also been holding back and thinks today might be the day it happens. Minchul tries to take off his shirt, but he's so jacked that he struggles to do so. So Minchul rips off his shirt like a madman and says he won't hold back anymore. Gia tells him to continue, so Minchul starts unbuttoning Gia's shirt. Minchul starts to kiss Gia while pinning her to the bed and then moves to her neck. When Gia realizes her shirt is almost completely unbuttoned, she tries to cover up in embarrassment. Gia jokingly says that maybe Minchul learned this from YouTube, but when Minchul goes to grab a certain contraceptive from the desk, Gia realizes this is no time to joke around. Gia and Minchul had remained children up until this moment, but today, they shared an adult exchange. However, when Gia wakes up saying she'll never do it again and thinks it was all a dream, but she knew it wasn't when she woke up next to Minchul. But that doesn't matter because it's 8:30 a.m. and they're late for work. Gia tries to get out of bed, but is stopped because her back hurts. Instead of consoling Gia, Minchul comments how the weather is nice and suggests she skip work and stay at home today. This prompts Gia to blankly stare at Minchul as if she's lagging. Minchul tries to get her to say something, but it doesn't work. So he tries to kiss her and Gia punches him and goes to get ready for work. But she can't because of her back pain. So Gia goes to the laundromat to wash the sheets and calls Yenju to call out sick. Yenju is skeptical, so she video calls Gia, and when Gia mentions her back pain and she remembers that Gia is newly married, she puts two and two together and allows the sick leave. Gia tries to deny it even though that's exactly what happened. But this conversation gives her flashbacks from last night and she gets embarrassed. While Gia can't even go to work, Minchul is completely fine. If you were to ask him why, he would say that he has that bedroom cardio because he trains more than you. Gia doesn't know how to handle the situation because she can barely look at Minchul, so she hides in her room when Minchul gets home. Gia references their agreement to prevent Minchul from coming into her room. But Minchul plays in a no-reverse card by saying that the contract says that they need to talk it out, resulting in him opening the locked door and sending Gia flying. Gia thought he somehow broke down the door because it was locked, but he really just used his spare key. Minchul drags Gia out while she complains how this isn't allowed, but Minchul says that Gia has entered his room when she wanted many times before. This reminds Minchul of a prank Gia played on him many years ago. In class, Gia wrote Gia's property on his arm. In hindsight, this is embarrassing. Gia and Minchul sit down and eat snacks while Gia ponders how wonderful her marriage has been. She started working out and stopped smoking, but Minchul dragged her out of her room an hour ago and hasn't said anything since. So, Gia asks Minchul what he wanted to say to her. Minchul reveals that he dragged Gia out of her room to ask her if she wants to see the new Spaghetti Man movie. Gia is confused but agrees, and Minchul books the tickets for the weekend. Suddenly, Minchul says that he likes Gia and that's the real reason she's here. Gia is flustered, but Minchul continues by saying that he likes Gia. So, Gia tells Minchul to prove it, and she instantly regrets what she said because she could barely handle the activities last night. To prove it, Minchul asks Gia to close her eyes, and when she opens them, she sees a ring on her finger, and Minchul asks Gia to marry him. Gia is confused because they're already married. But Minchul meant they should become a real married couple rather than continue their contract marriage. Gia thinks this is too sudden, and the setting and mood isn't right for a proposal. So, Minchul asks for the ring back so he can propose somewhere romantic like an expensive restaurant. But that's not what Gia meant, and she questions why Minchul wants to marry her because her personality isn't the best and she runs away from her problems. But the truth is that Minchul liked Gia since they were kids and regrets not being able to tell her, so he's doing it now. So once again, Mincheol asks Jia to marry him and Jia bows to be respectful and accepts. In response, Mincheol does a handstand instead of a bow to show his level of respect. Their marriage is final, but Jia is still embarrassed about last night. So, Jia suggests they do it again and Mincheol immediately goes to take a shower to get ready. As Mincheol carries Jia away to the bedroom, Jia realizes that her real married life starts today. This is the end of season 1, which is chapter 80 of Maybe Meant to Be, also known as Match Made in Heaven, and there won't be more chapters out for a while. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to like and subscribe.